Welcome to the Take a Breather podcast with Eric Almeida and myself, Stacy Every. We are certified EFT practitioners, and today during our podcast, we're going to talk about EFT, the history behind it, how it works, and the science, and how it can help you. And so we're going to jump right in, and Eric's going to take over and talk a little bit about the history of EFT.
Awesome. Thank you, Stacy. So, EFT stands for the Emotional Freedom Technique. It was discovered back in the 1970s that tapping on acupuncture points on the body could bring relief to patients around fears, phobias, and stress. And the primary hypothesis that was developed around what was discovered is that the cause of all negative emotions is a disturbance in our body's natural energy system. And the particular acupuncture points that were tapped upon were the points that were affiliated with the meridians. And so one of the disciples of one of the original doctors, Dr. Callahan, one of his disciples, Gary Craig, was a Stanford engineer. And he took that research from back in the 70s and he refined it, incorporating the self-tapping on the meridian points. And he ended up actually coining the name Emotional Freedom Technique. And back in the 1990s, he started to promote the technique on his website, and it has continued to kind of spread from there. Um, with the creation, then there was the creation of the EFT International organization that provides accreditations, that the accreditations that myself and Stacy have gotten. And there continues to be profound amounts of research being done in regards to the effectiveness of EFT. So I've actually read very recently an fMRI research that was done, I think back in 2017, 2018, that was showing how effective EFT was in dealing with food cravings. So they did if I remember the study 100% correctly, they did cognitive behavioral therapy for one group of people, and they did EFT for another group of people over the particular food items. And they noticed a dramatic reduction in brain activation for the EFT participants versus the CBT participants, which is really, really fascinating because, food issues is a pretty common issue that a lot of people have to deal with. I've
If I,
also, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, if I recall, Gary Craig himself specifically developed a couple of the techniques, specific like sub techniques within EFT to work with Vietnam veterans who had PTSD. And I know I've also read several studies about where they compared, I think, other types of therapies to be used with veterans versus EFT, and how there's a definite it's statistically significant, the effects of EFT for those vets versus some other more conventional types of therapies.
No, for sure. Because one of the interesting benefits of EFT is that you can be doing work on whatever the mental issue is, including post traumatic stress, without having to verbally and actively relive the situation. And there's been a lot of conflicting research in that regard over how effective it actually is to relive post traumatic stress triggering events from the past. And EFT has those sub techniques that allow you to essentially tap around the issue and still provide one with mental health benefits without having to dive into whatever it was directly, or and get and in certain situations get the client to a point where they're comfortable to face it again because a lot of the stronger charge has been reduced.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm going to kick it over to Stacy, who's going to go into detail as to how to actually do the tapping. So take it
Yeah.
away.
Yeah. So since we are both audio as well as visual on YouTube, I am going to really describe each points. So there's 10 points, and the 10 points access all 14 meridians, as Eric said, which is a way the energy system is accessed in our body. And the acupuncture has been using the meridian system for thousands of years. And so the tapping is helping to clear the disturbance from the energy system. And it may seem odd to just that you can tap on a point and have it significantly change what's happening in your body, but you in fact are fundamentally hacking into your energy and nervous system. So as far as tapping, the term, we tend to think in terms of tapping, but in fact, you don't have to whack it really hit the area hard. We think in terms of putting needles in those points. Oh, you must have to really dig in those points in order to be effective, and that's not so. In fact, you can just lay, put a finger or fingers over a point and just hold it there, and it still activates the meridians. So
Yep. No,
it can be
you're not bruising yourself or punching yourself with these points.
there's no whacking, there's no digging into points. You can just very gently tap on them or simply hold the point, and it's still going to work. It's still effective. So the first point we tend to call the karate chop point. It's the side of the hand below the pinky, and where the meaty side of the hands is where the first point is. And you can take your whole, in either hand can tap either the other hand. It doesn't matter which hand taps which hand. You can go back and forth, tap the right hand with the left hand or the left hand with the right hand. It's all fine. And you can just take all 4 fingers and tap that whole side of your opposite hand to activate that first meridian. The next point is on the top of the head. And if you were to part your hair down the middle, you're tapping right on the part with all 4 fingertips. So right in the center, top center of your head, running, yeah, as if you moved your hand down, you'd be like going to your nose. So, but it's top of your head. So the next point is there's your eyebrow. You're tapping the inside point of your eyebrow. And in fact, a lot of these points correspond to where nerves are very exposed. Nerves that have like a direct line into your brain. There's actually even a little divot in your skull where the nerve emerges from your skull to go down your face. And if you don't feel the divot, that's fine. But there is, in fact, often you can feel a little divot there, and that's where you're tapping for the next point. So it's the inside corner closest to your nose. The next point is the opposite side of the eyebrow on the side of the eye. And again, you can take a bunch of fingers and just tap the side of your eye. And if you feel you're like, I'm not sure I'm getting the right point, don't worry about it. As long as you're nearby, you're going to be activated and it's going to work. And you may find that some of these points may feel tender or sore, or maybe just feel really nice to tap those points. And those are all good signs that you're tapping a point that meridian can use some activation. And what you're doing is going to be helpful for you in the short term and or long term. The next point is under the eye and again, this is the point where the nerve emerges from your skull. It's on the eye socket. The point is like right below your pupil and next to the nose, below the pupil on that cheekbone there, that eye socket the eye socket ridge. The next point is below the nose on the upper lip. So not where the actual lip is, just the skin between the nose and the upper lip. And the next point is the crease of the chin. So below the lower lip and above where your chin juts out, there's like a little divot in there. And you tap there next. So the next point is at the junction of your 2 collarbones. So right below your throat, your 2 collarbones meet, but they don't touch. There's like a little U there. And you take your whole hand and just tap on top of that juncture where the 2 collarbones come together at the base of your throat. And that way you'll be sure to hit the acupuncture point that needs to be activated for this to work. Next point is on your side, on your rib cage, under the arm. For women, it's on the bra line. For men, it's parallel. Thank you for doing that. Again, the YouTube thing. Across, it's basically parallel to the nipple, right on the side of the body. And again, take your whole hand and tap that area to make sure you get the right spot. And the next point is on the wrist, on the inside of your wrist, below the hand. Take all 4 fingers and hit that area. And that brings us back to the side of the hand, below the pinky. And if you go online, you may find that different people have different points. And these are the ones that we use because there's only 10 of them, which is nice. There's only 10 to memorize. There are other points you can use that other people discover, find good for them, but for the sake of this show and for what we'll be talking about when we have tapping sessions, these are the points we'll be using. And now that we have that all squared away, I'm going to turn it back to Eric to talk about the science. So, okay, we're doing all this wacky tapping thing. So, what's happening while we're tapping, Eric?
For sure. So the primary hypothesis that is believed as to what the tapping is doing on these 10 meridian points is that it is calming down the fight, fight, or freeze response that we all have innately within us. So we need that fight, flight, and freeze response in order for human survival. It's that same response you get if you're on the highway, a car is merging into your lane, you swerve out of the way. It's that same response you get if you're going on a hike, there's a snake on the path, and you jump back or you freeze. And it's for basic survival, we need that. But in regards to traumatic memories, it's that system is being activated once again unnecessarily. So perfect example, if you think about a memory in which you did something embarrassing, your heart might start racing, your palms might start sweating, you might get pale, you might get nauseous, and that system is being activated once again, even though it's just a memory, even though you're not in any kind of danger. And the reason for that system being activated again is that your mind wants you to remember when something traumatic has happened in order to keep you alive. But with a traumatic memory, whatever event happened to you in the past, your mind doesn't want you to forget because you were in some form of perceived or actual danger when it happened. But when you think about it again, or it's right under your in your subconscious, that system is still being activated. And then you might react to something in the present in a lot stronger of a way, or react to something in the present that you shouldn't react to anything at all, because that system is being activated once again. And that's that same fight, fight, and freeze system. It's pumping your body through full of adrenaline and through cortisol. And that system is controlled by the amygdala of the brain, which is the reptilian part of the brain. It's the most primitive part of the brain. And the purpose that the tapping calms that part of your brain down and allows your frontal lobe, your cognitive mind, to take back control and then to process what you're going through. And a very common thing that happens when you are tapping, if you're tapping on just a generalized feeling, whether you're feeling angry or you're feeling scared or you're feeling anxious, is that as that initial charge starts to go down, your cognitive mind starts to get re-engage itself, and then memories might actually come to the surface that may be contributing to what you are experiencing. And so Stacy's going to go into more detail as to how that is, how we, as part of the process as us as practitioners, to help heal our clients. So Stacy, take it away.
Yeah, and I just want to just reiterate some couple things that I think is really important is that traditional talk therapy is really helpful for helping people process certain kinds of memories when it comes to this kind of disturbance in the energy system, this kind of memory that we ends up getting encoded in our body. It's really, we don't have conscious access to it. Like, as Eric said, it's the lizard brain that's reacting, and you can logically think, I shouldn't be afraid right now. I'm not in any actual danger. Why am I having a panic attack? And it's because the lizard brain does not care what you think. It's it
Exactly. Yeah.
it learned, and all of a sudden the lizard brain takes in these, records these memories as being dangerous back when we're children, when frankly everything is dangerous, right? When you're a child, you're far more hyper aware of your vulnerability, and so a lot of things that wouldn't be dangerous if it happened to you as an adult felt like life threatening as a child. And the brain said, hey, this is life threatening. The lizard brain doesn't know that you're now 35 years old. It's still remembering that thing that happened to us when we were 5 was dangerous. And so, yeah, EFT disrupts that. And that's why so much of we end up working with people is stuff that happened to us when we were younger. And and uh, and what ends up happening, that I think is the most interesting piece of this in my own work with EFT, is things happen to us when we're younger, and we have experiences. Some of them are negative, some of them are neutral, some are positive, and they really shape our perceptions of ourselves. Like, so
For sure.
for example, for me, I developed a phobia of public speaking And so I thought I was a bad public speaker. Like I defined myself by that quality. I can't speak in public. I can't communicate very well with people. I don't know how to talk to people. And it becomes like a self-definition when actually it's just a behavior I learned. And that's so much we discover with EFT and doing this kind of deep, this body work, is there's tons of stuff in our bodies and our energy systems and our nervous system that we think it's our personality, when it's actually just a learned habit, and it's not who we are at all. And so it's really fascinating. Fascinating. So in fact, we're going to talk about some of the ways in which EFT is helpful, is in fact around things like phobias. Fear of public speaking, agoraphobia, even things like fear of heights, can all be based in childhood memories that you can tap out of your system, and you no longer have those fears. It could be any kind of if it feels irrational to you, the fear, then it's probably a memory stuck in your energy system that's impacting how you behave, but can be released with EFT. If you develop the habit of being emotionally suppressed because expressing emotions was dangerous when you were young, which is, I think, super common in America at large, but certainly in certain kinds of families where it's not safe to be emotionally expressive, that that fear of expressing yourself can be relieved with EFT as well. And then very physical things too, like food cravings, physical pain also can be affected by EFT as well.
Yeah, the food cravings one, that one was super interesting. So when you and I were in training, we practiced, we did demos and practiced all of these techniques on each other.
Mm.
And food cravings was one of the first ones that we did. And I remember being like, at the time, my food craving was chocolate, and chocolate with hazelnut in particular. And so
I didn't know the hazelnut was.
yeah, oh no, the hazelnut just like, yeah, I can't have Nutella anywhere near me. I have no self-control. And so
I can't blame you, really.
yeah, it's delicious, but yeah,
Delicious.
it's obscene. And so I did tapping on that using the technique that we learned specific for food cravings. And I was so agitated after that particular training round. And I just kept tapping on it and tapping on it after the class had ended. And like all this shit came up in me specific towards how much I was relying on food as a way to be like that emotional blanket for when I was feeling like upset. And that was a way for me to take control, because I would eat something and I would typically overeat something, and then I'd have that gross full feeling, but it was self-imposed instead of me feeling anxious or depressed about something I didn't know what was going on. And the really crazy part was, like, after tapping on the food specifically itself, and then having all that kind of come up, and then tap on that system in itself in its own way, I haven't eaten chocolate since. I've had no desire to. And before then, I was eating it every single day. And so, like, obviously there was more stuff under, like, it took off the top layer thing. Like, it got rid of this symptom and it took that layer off. And then this deeper layer was there that then I did work on as well. But like that primary symptom of the overeating, the compulsive eating, that I need chocolate every day, I need it as a treat, or I need it because I need to feel better, or blah, 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 blah. Like, I was able, that whole system, that whole concept was gone. And I that just, to this day, I'm like, I still like chocolate. I still do enjoy chocolate, but I'm not driven to eat it, which is really kind of fascinating. So
That's amazing.
yeah,
It brings up a point that I'm not going to pronounce his name properly. And I mean to look up how to pronounce his name forever.
it's okay.
So if you ever listen to this, I'm so sorry. Gabor Mate.
I have no idea.
He's
Go
a
on.
he's a Hungarian Canadian. I'll figure it out for next time. He's
Yeah.
a researcher, researcher and professional who's really talking a lot about addiction and how cravings and addictions are based in trauma. That it's all about self-medication, right? That we all we have things that we develop all of these habits and coping strategies for when we get anxious or when something comes up in our lives. And it can be smoking, it can be, and I think there's a lot of shame around particular addictions, like overeating can be is an addiction.
Hmm.
That's a self-medication, is to overeat using sugar, using coffee, um, uh, gambling. Any number of addiction is based in self-soothe. It's a self-soothing activity. So the interesting thing about food craving is that it's not the food we want, probably it's we're soothing something else. It's a medicate, we're using food as medication to
For
help
sure.
manage whatever unpleasant emotional state we're having. So it's the other piece about EFT that I love is, so much of, and I'm gonna try not to do bashing here. I just get irritated with so much of modern medicine where it's about masking symptoms, right? We have a, you're overeating, so stop eating already, rather than looking at the why are we overeating, why do we want the caffeine, why are we craving the chocolate and the hazelnut. And EFT allows us to get at the reasons and then heal those reasons, like the original reason why it led to the craving in the first place, rather than band-aiding the craving, but get at the actual root causes.
No, you're totally right. It's a lot of times, so much of the conventional wisdom is about just like you said, masking the symptom or trying to get rid of the symptoms. But like the great thing with the EFT and with the tapping is that you start there, but then you go deeper and you discover the source of what's making you want to overeat or to gamble, or why you're anxious all the time or why you're depressed all the time, and you heal those what we call core memories. And as you keep healing those core memories and release all of the remnant energy tied to them, the modern day expression of those core memories being unresolved will fall apart to the point where your contemporary issues can just completely go away. And so, yeah, like, with myself specifically, yeah, it was definitely like I've had, you know, food control issues for the majority of my life. There were times where I was overeating a lot, and there were times where I went the other extreme and, definitely was very food restrictive. And it's crazy because, like, if it this is gonna sound awful, but like if it wasn't for the fact that I totally loathe the experience of vomiting, I totally would have been bulimic. And there was definitely a time, especially in college, where I probably would have been diagnosed as anorexic, because it isn't healthy to not eat for 10 hours and then have one gigantic meal at the end of the day and you're still not getting enough calories. Because even,
Mm-hmm.
even 1,000 calorie meal at once, for a guy, you still need about two. So yeah, that was a big old mess back then for me.
Mm-hmm.
But
Food is super, I mean, food is a very, very common, um
and it's
uh
so complicated because
yeah, our relationships with food, how food is used when we're growing up, how we end up
mm-hmm.
using it. We become users of food rather
Yes.
than consumers of food. Or it's serving way more functions than just nutrition. So
Oh
there's
yeah.
a lot of emotional stuff wrapped up in food for everybody, and
Oh yeah.
I think.
And compared to some of the other common addictions like gambling or drugs, you can't abstain from food. You need
Right,
food. You need to
that's a good
eat.
point. Yes,
So
that's a
it
very good
makes it,
point.
it makes it immensely more complicated. And, yes, when it comes to drug addiction, yes, there is a biological system that's being activated by the drugs themselves. But you see a lot of times in the research of that a person can be biologically no longer addicted, but mentally it's still there. And that's that extra step where EFT can be so helpful, is like when a person's already clean, they're already in, Narcotics Anonymous or Alcoholics Anonymous, and they're at a point where they're off of the substance and they're biologically it's out of their system. Those seeds, those core memories that contributed to them wanting to use the substances to begin with are still there. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's something where EFT can be so effective, because it goes after why the person wanted to use drugs to begin with, which from a lot of times it's to, like we were saying with food, it's to mask something. something about their reality is so upsetting, they'd rather not feel reality. They'd rather be in an altered state. They'd rather be drunk or high because it's just easier for them.
Mm-hmm.
And it's, that's one of the really cool things with EFT is that you really do get to those core components, those the seeds that form the contemporary issues, whatever they are. It could be, each person expresses it in their own unique way. And it's what makes it really fascinating as a practitioner, being like, like, like like, I use the plant analogy a lot of times. Like you start at the top of the plant, the leaves of the tree, and you find the trunk, you go into the roots, and it's like, oh, it's like these things happened in your past, and then this gigantic weed just emerged that has turned into this, this horrible system that the person is living within, that they feel almost compelled by. And it's a great way to kind of like weed it all out.
And what huge far-reaching positive impacts, because what I was thinking about was the fact that I know that often when I'm feeling like when my food cravings happen, so speaking of the layers, right? So we've
Mm-hmm.
got, I'm suddenly craving coffee. Well, it's actually because I'm feeling anxious or insecure about something. So
Mm.
there's like, okay, food craving, feeling of insecurity. So if you're tapping and find out the reasons why you have the craving, and you get down to some life altering perception of yourself that makes you generally insecure, because lack of confidence and insecurity is actually if you just feel generally generally lack confidence or generally feel insecure, again, that's not who you are. That's how you were taught to be by your
Mm-hmm.
experiences, by the people in your life, by, I mean, and there's so many things, right? Like when it comes to lack of confidence and insecurity, like our society has all these opportunities to feel insecure about ourselves. These
Oh yeah.
lessons, be it in our family, in our birth family, and among our friends, in the media, in the schools, in just all these places. So so if you're tapping with the intent of getting rid of a food craving, you can end up getting rid of a fundamental insecurity you have about yourself. So not
Oh
only
yeah.
I mean, you're not just, so yeah, you're not craving that food, but boy, how profound that you were no longer insecure about yourself in a particular circumstance. Like say, be it maybe with authority figures, or insecure around, creating something, or insecure around putting yourself forward, or insecure about changing your life around, or learning a new skill. So you take away an insecurity like that, you fundamentally change your perception of yourself, and also how you can manifest in your own life, and the things you're able to do now that you weren't able to do because of the original insecurity that was actually being masked by a food craving.
No, 100%. And this has happened to me a bunch of times, you know, either being in the client chair or being in the practitioner chair. And I'm sure it's happened to you as well, Stacy, but like you'd start the session on one thing, and
Oh yeah.
then 45 minutes later, like you don't even know how the hell you got there anymore. And
Yep.
it's just like, you started with, I'm really pissed off at my boss because they said this, to you're crying over something that happened when you were 5, to you end the session and you just feel great, and then you're like, oh, I don't give a shit what my boss said at all. And it's just like, that's the truly amazing thing with the EFT and with the tapping, is like you start at the present, you start with whatever it is, but then like it the tapping lowers that energetic charge to whatever's happening in the moment, and then you start going down those rabbit holes into your past.
and
It's
and
so crazy.
It is. And just for a quick, like, a reassurance to folks who are listening to this, thinking, oh, there's some things happened to me in my past. I don't want to go anywhere near those things. I don't want to
Mm-hmm.
think about them. I don't want to touch them. I can't feel them again, or I will be overwhelmed. And the great thing about EFT is there's tons of techniques that allow us to tap around the issue without ever having to, literally don't have to think about it. You don't even have
Mm-hmm.
to tell, like, if say you're working with one of us, you don't even have to tell us what happened in the memory,
Mm-hmm.
and you can still tap on, and don't have to feel into it, tap or talk about it, and you can still work on it. It's just so gentle and lovely in that way that, I think also there's an American perception, pain, no gain. In order to actually, succeed, you have to suffer, and you have to, and you have to be, bashed and beaten up in order to be, whether it's an exercise or it's an emotional healing, that it has to be harsh to work. And it's just not so. In fact, when it comes to those deep traumas we carry, we're way better off being as gentle as possible to allow the body to slowly heal. And the body wants to heal. I'm a massage therapist and an energy worker too. And it's been very clear to me that we have a very powerful urge to heal. Like, our bodies are looking to be as flowing and content as possible. And we're made to take the opportunities that we're given to heal whatever trauma we may have experienced in our lives that's holding us back from our authentic self. And that's the other thing about EFT I love, and all the body psychotherapies, where we're clearing away the layers of behavior, of coping strategy. Like, all of us are a bundle of coping strategies that
For
we
sure.
use to get through daily life, through experiences that we struggle with. And this is a way to just be us, and
Yep.
how we want to be in the world, not managing our anxiety all the time. It's just so freeing in that way.
Yeah. And the other big thing too, going with what you're saying about it being gentle, is that, us as practitioners, we're not pulling anything out of our clients. We simply allow whatever is ready to be healed to come to the surface.
Yep.
So, you know, so, a lot of time, like, I like to describe it to my clients a lot of the time of like, the smallest bruise is the one that wants to be healed first. It's kind of like
That's
a
true.
tester.
Yeah.
So, the lighter things start to come up first. And then when those get healed and you get that mental energy back and that vitality back, your own psyche is like, oh, we're better. We're doing better. And it's like, okay, here's this. It's a little bit more rough than the last one. And then that gets healed. And they're like, the psyche is like, oh, that's gone too. Oh, this is great. Okay, this one's a little rougher. What about this one? And then that one gets healed. And then your psyche's like, damn, like that's gone too. It's like, okay, we've been sitting on this for years. This gnarly, nasty, gross, putrefied thing. And it's like, this is going to be rough, but here you go. And that tends to happen when we're working with clients in the long term, is that as you build the rapport with the client, and all the things I just described are completely subconscious. A person's not thinking those thoughts and that kind of thing. It's all subconscious. Like, as we continue to develop that relationship with the client, and the client becomes more and more comfortable with either one of us or any other practitioner, their psyche becomes willing to let these things come up, because they're seeing that they could finally let that stuff go. Because it's constant mental energy to hold that stuff in our subconscious and keep it buried.
Yes.
And what causes conventional mental illness symptoms is when those reserves start to run out, because life has its moments where it likes to kick you, and it's going to kick you when you're down because it doesn't give a crap, because that's just life. And so when you're already holding so much back just to function, and then all of a sudden, COVID happens, or, you get broken up with, or, you get really sick, or you get in a car accident, or your best friend gets in a big fight with you, all of a sudden, like, your emotional strain gets up even higher, and like those mental muscles are already tired, and then stuff gets let go, and then all of a sudden it's, you know you're screaming at the cat, that I've totally done many, many times. You're screaming at the cat, or you can't get out of bed, or you're just riddled with anxiety, or it gets worse and it spirals into agoraphobia and things like that, and like the more diagnosable illnesses. And
and
yeah.
even just spirals into self disgust. I mean, I think
Mm.
it's a it's one of those aspects of modern society that often, like, makes me very angry and sad, is that people blame themselves, like,
Mm-hmm.
for their own irritability or their own
Mm. Mm-hmm.
inability to manage the, like, oh my god, this thing is happening and I can't handle it. Like, I am incapable of handling this horrible thing happening right, like now. Like, that's not your fault. You're already juggling COVID world and a stressful job, and maybe you have kids, and maybe and you the car broke down. And there's always like 15. If you think about what's happening in your life, any one person can list 5 to 10 things that are a constant source of stress
Hmm.
every day.
Yeah,
And so the body only can handle so much. It's only meant to handle so much before something has to give. And and, and some of the pieces, I believe that the more we heal ourselves, the more we're able to set aside more time for self-care, or
hmm,
we feel worthy of setting aside time for self-care, or we're able to say no more easily, or we're
mm-hmm.
and then, as Eric said, we simply have like more space in our energy system and in our
Oh
nervous
yeah,
system to be able to handle the stuff that does come down the pike, because sometimes it's modern life stuff is just going to come down the pike. But we're no longer expending so much energy holding back our anxieties around these old memories, or holding or suppressing the memories, or suppressing our emotions to keep in control. Or there's just more, it's like literally there's more room in our body for to hold the good stuff as well as the hard stuff that comes up.
for sure. And like you were saying as well, you know, self-disgust and shame are those are some of the most roughest emotions to process because
Mm-hmm.
it's those I've certainly noticed with myself and with my clients. Those are the ones that they don't that none of us wants to talk about the most because it's
Mm-hmm.
just we can be so cruel to ourselves in that regard. And if we're ashamed of something that we did or ashamed of who we feel we are, that is a really difficult belief to unearth. And it's certainly a delicate process, but with EFT you can
Yeah, absolutely. And that's
dismantle it. It's just that particular tone of emotion is just it's so corrosive. And just I've seen people so defeated by themselves. And I'll admit, I've been there. I've been at that point where I'm just on the ground, you know, mentally speaking, and being like, I'm done. And it's like there's no point even trying to lift myself back up. And it's the weight of myself pushing me down. It's like, you're not worthy. And that's rough. But you can get through it. You can break apart that belief and dissolve it, and then fill it with positivity, and fill it with, I can do this. If I try, I can. And I know I can try. And if I fail, it's not the end of the world. I can learn. And that's a big change of, if I fail, I'm a loser. It's changing, the same experience, you change that perspective. It makes it easier for you to just be like, oh, I said something stupid on this podcast. Who cares? Move on. No one's going to notice. No one's going to remember. Who gives a shit? But then for someone else where, yeah, I know, where that shame system and that belief system is still very active, it could plague them for weeks, and they'll never want to try it again. And
Mm-hmm.
it's a shame because it's, making mistakes and tripping a little bit and all of that is normal and part of growth. Growth comes with a little bit of pain and embarrassment and things like that. And it's just sometimes based on how we were raised or what we experienced, when those situations happened, the vitriol was so strong. But you were about to say something.
No, I just that's all good. No, it's one of the things that I found amazing about EFT. So I've for years I've been aware, as a woman in America, growing up in a certain kind of house, certain religious upbringing. There's just all these limiting beliefs that I knew intellectually were just limiting beliefs, that they weren't real things. Women can't do this, or you're too tall, or I'm too this, you're too that. And it's just there's so many limiting beliefs that we think of as being truth, that
Mm,
comes from our society. And so there's the truths we think are the things we think are true about ourselves, and then there's the things we think are true about how to live a life, and there's things we think are true about how we move through the world and how we have relationships, and there's all these things we think are true, and so many of them are actually just simply limiting beliefs.
No. Oh my God. Yeah.
There's no truth to any of them. They're just things we've all picked as a culture or as a family or as an individual based on what's come before us, or what, people. There's been a struggle for a long time with, the idea of hierarchy and class, and associating, this is what you do if you're a white woman in America versus this is what you say if you're gay, or if you're straight, or if you're, trans, or if you're a person of color. And they're all just made up. They're all just make believe. I mean, 99% of the stuff that we're taught about how we're supposed to be is based on what the culture thinks should happen versus what's good for us as an individual. And 90, and so much of them are just simply limiting. And that EFT lets you rewrite all of it. You just get to
Yes.
rewrite all of those limiting beliefs and just have a whole new, free of that, the baggage. And frankly, that's why I'm really interested in this podcast and having as many people learn about tapping as possible, because we all can benefit just being freed from the restrictions of cultural norms is huge, both for just being happier, knowing ourselves, and being able to be more productive, and create a more nourishing world for ourselves and for each other.
Yeah, and just finding fulfillment for oneself, and discovering your path and being true and authentic to yourself, and then living with more ease, because you know life is always going to be hard. That's just part of living. We can't avoid accidents and illness and misfortune, and then eventually death.
We will always
But
have challenges,
we
yes.
will always have challenges. But how we handle them, and how we approach them, and how we see them, that we can change. And that's the lovely thing with EFT, is that not to bash the conventional therapies, there's a wealth of knowledge there that even we certainly
Oh
tap
yeah.
into.
It's a
No pun
different kind.
intended.
It's a different kind of medicine. Like there's
Yes.
different kinds of medicines, and sometimes you need one kind of medicine, and sometimes you need something different. And
Yes. Yeah.
conventional talk therapy is a type of medicine that's really helpful for
Exactly.
a lot of stuff. Yeah.
And a lot of conventional talk therapy therapists are incorporating EFT into their practices, because the talk therapies can get you that cognitive knowledge of, I am like this because this happened to me. And then EFT can do that too, but it does that extra layer of like, okay, now we can get rid of the emotion that's fueling all of this, and that's sometimes where there can be a disconnect with more conventional therapies versus EFT, is that it's missing that extra dimension of the emotion, of the energy that's still fueling that old system. Because like, so many people could be like, oh, I'm this kind of person because this, my parents did this to me, or this experience happened to me. And so they know what it is, but they still are repeating the same pattern. And it's like that is the first step. Knowledge is the first step, self-awareness is the first step, but it's like, well, then you need to dismantle the system so that you're not repeating it again.
I mean, as a body worker, I got to say, when we have a significant injury, and so in my world, there are no metaphors. There's just the same repeating patterns over and over again. So when it comes to a physical injury, and it's significant, and it's impacting how you're able to, say you hurt your shoulder in a car accident, you need more than one medicine. Like that
Mm,
shoulder needs it. You can come to me for massage, and there's a bunch of stuff I can do, but very, very often when it's something chronic or something that's just too deeply wounded, you also need physical therapy. You also might need acupuncture. You might also need a chiropractor. And that's just over and over again. I see that pattern, and I feel the same way with emotional injury. Is that
mm,
I think conventional therapy and EFT is a brilliant combination. So I work with chiropractors a lot. It's a brilliant combination. Muscle work with bone work, get some great results. Conventional talk therapy with EFT, I think, is beautiful, because the talk therapy uncovers the limiting beliefs that you have, and uncovers the core memories that are giving you trouble, and the EFT clears them from your lizard brain. So
Hmm.
you process them in your prefrontal cortex and your cognition processes, and then your lizard brain is healed. And that's like that. There you go. Like that. What it doesn't get better than that. And that takes care of. And then your issue is that that phobia, that limiting belief is just gone. And that's the great. I don't know if it's been said yet that this is not a band-aid at all. This is eliminates the limiting belief, or the memory, the triggering response on the core memory is gone and doesn't come back. It's just done with. And it's amazing. I've been doing this for years. I'm still amazed.
I know, right? And that's the thing. I've had many people, when a memory has been cleared out, you don't forget the memory. It's just the memory like becomes almost like stale. I've had clients describe it like the memory turns black and white, or like, they like it's
Interesting.
only fragments of it are left. And because fundamentally most of us don't remember everything from our past, because most of it, our brains are like, this information isn't that important to remember actively.
Right.
And like that's what essentially what you're doing with EFT on those old memories, that are those traumatic memories, is that you're clearing out that emotion that's there, and then turning that what was once a traumatic memory into just, any other random Tuesday. And so like, yeah, you'll still remember, oh yeah, yeah, I do remember when I was in the third grade, this kid beat me up, blah, blah, blah. But then you're not going to have the whole, every time you're in something that reminds you of that your whole system gets activated and triggered. And then all of a sudden you're like, why am I so anxious? Or why am I so scared? Like all of that goes away. And yeah, like, just like you were saying, the change is permanent. When the memory is cleared out, it's done, and it's just whatever was there is gone. And then as practitioners, we move on to the next memory. And for a contemporary issue, it's on average it's about like 3 to 5 memories for the contemporary issue to dissolve away. And then for someone who's experienced prolonged repetitive trauma, an abusive family member, guardian, or something like that, yes, you're talking about closer to maybe 8, 9, or 10 memories, but it's still possible. And you're getting healing throughout the entire process. You're getting that mental vitality back throughout the entire process. And it's just the transformation that I've witnessed with my clients in a single session still baffles me, even though I know all of this. And even the transformations in myself, like you and I can both relate in regards to fear of public speaking. And like just a year and change ago, I would have never have been as open and as forthcoming with my past like I am right now talking to you. Like I would never, I would feel like, I was bullied a lot as a kid. I learned very early on to hide my authentic self because it wasn't safe. And now I'm sharing it with whomever wants to listen, to strangers. And it doesn't bother me. If anything, it feels great to just kind of be open and honest and just be me. And that's something that EFT did for me. And I want to give that to other people in the same way you want to give that to other people, that just sense of calm and trueness to oneself.
Absolutely.
So yeah, so for all of the listeners who are like, how the hell do I want to do this? I'm so excited to do this. So one of the things that we will be doing with this podcast is that we're going to have what we're calling a tapping Thursdays. So we're going to release our normal podcast episodes on Tuesdays, where we're talking amongst ourselves, or we're going to have interviews with other mental and physical health workers. And then on Thursdays, Stacy and I are going to do some tapping rounds on specific topics that as our listeners, can listen along and tap along and just get some nice healing for yourselves. And the one that we're going to do after this particular release is going to be around generalized anxiety, because I have not met a single person who's never felt anxious in their life.
Right.
So being able to just have something to work off of to heal one's anxiety in the moment is so helpful.
Yes. A quick note: if
Yeah,
you're
please.
listening, yeah, quick. If you're listening to this and you're thinking, "Oh my God, this is amazing! I want to jump right in. I want to try this out. I'm going to tap." So if you start tapping, and you have something really strong, I've had this happen to me too, where I'm tapping on something that feels relatively generalized or relatively innocuous, and then have some really strong emotions come up around it, and it may be shocking. So if that happens, it's not so surprise at all. It's entirely reasonable for that to happen, and just keep tapping.
Yep.
When in doubt, if you're having a strong emotional reaction, I mean, honestly, if you're out in the world and you're having a strong emotional reaction, it's great to, if you can pause and tap. It's fabulous. But certainly, if you start off tapping, have something really powerful come up and think, oh my gosh, this is, what's happening to me. I should stop. Don't stop. Just keep tapping the whole time, and eventually it'll calm your nervous system down. Because fundamentally, we use a lot of techniques to help uncover the core memories, but simply tapping is very soothing to your nervous system. I often will hold the points before, if I'm having a time going to bed, I'm going to sleep, you hold the points before bed. It just is a great soothing way to finish the day, or just to soothe general feelings of anxiety, or whatever if you're having a rough moment. Tapping is just a really great thing, self-care tool for yourself.
100%. 100%. So, anything else, Stacy, before we wrap up?
I think that was my last little thing I wanted to mention. Just keep tapping. Just keep tapping.
Beautiful. So thank you all for listening. And if you would like to learn more information about Stacy or myself, or you'd like to follow us on our social medias and all that fun stuff, please look in the episode description. All of our Facebooks and LinkedIn's and websites are all listed there. And please subscribe to our podcast, subscribe to our YouTube channel, give us a 5-star review on our podcast. That would greatly appreciate and be super helpful to us. And we will talk to you again soon.